to all the teams for making it this far. You have demonstrated remarkable debating skills, and we are excited to witness another round of thought provoking arguments. Let us understand the time count for the semi final round. Each team gets 8 minutes to speak on the given topic. First warning bell will be at the 6th minute, second and final warning bell at the 8th minute. Negative markings will be applied after the 8th minute. 10 minutes of counter arguments. Each team gets 2 minutes to conclude. So the total debate time is of 30 minutes. Let us understand the qualification rounds. The top teams from the octa-final round have advanced to the semi-finals based on the judges' evaluations. Only two teams will qualify for the grand finale. Also, please note that the usage of cell phones, electronic media, other than the device used for attending the meeting, is not permitted. Debaters will not receive help from anyone during their presentation. Videos must be switched on when the opposing team is speaking. Participants must ensure a stable internet connection, audio, and adequate lighting. Participants must log into Zoom with their participant codes as their names. All participants must join at least 15 minutes before the scheduled debate. If absent, their opponents will be declared winners. No excuses will be entertained. Participants should not ask for feedback from the judges until the results are announced. The organizers reserve the right to modify rules if required. So, the judges for today are, we are honored to have Professor Kishu Daswani as our judge today. A legal scholar with 25 plus years of experience, he specializes in contract and criminal law and teaches at GLC Mumbai, St. Xavier's, and NLSIU. Welcome, sir. We are honored to have CA Premal Gandhi as our judge today, a chartered accountant with 20 plus years of experience. He specializes in audit, taxation, and advisory for MNCs, startups, and charitable trusts. A Taxman author and speaker, he actively contributes to WIRC and GST committees. Welcome, sir. So now starting with our first debate of the semi-final round. So topic for this round is, there should be one nation, one election in India. The team 19 is speaking for the topic and team 25 is speaking against the topic. Once again, I'm repeating the topic. There should be one nation, one election in India. Let's begin the debate.
Dear teams, I'll be your timekeeper. Uh, as you know, you will be getting 8 minutes each for introduction. At the 6th minute, I will be sending a warning on the chat box, and as and when the 8 minutes finish, I'll be ringing a bell, something sounding like this. I hope it was audible, right? So we will start with team 19 as you are for the motion. Team 19, your introduction time starts in 3, 2 and 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and worthy opponents. Today I am here to talk about one nation, one election. The visionary policy promising to strengthen Indian democracy, streamlining governments and optimize resources of brighter future. We will present you the three compiling premises, each backed with a recent convenience fact demonstrating why simultaneous election is a need of an hour. Premises 1. One nation, one election, enhanced government policies. The first reason to support simultaneous election is their ability to ensure uninterrupted governments. India's current electoral system, with the election occurring almost every year, creates a perpetual state of political campaigning. Disrupting the policy implementation between 2020 and 2024, India conducted 19 state assembly elections alongside the election of local polls with an average of 4 to 5 states going poll annually. This fragmented cycle means that model code of conduct, which halts the new policies announcement, the development of projects, is imposed nearly 150 days in every 5 terms, paralyzing government. And the results? The policy delays and government paralysis. For instance, rollout of Ayushman Bharat digital mission aims to digitalize healthcare face setbacks in the states like Maharashtra, Jharkhand due to election related disruption in 2023. Simultaneous Simultaneously, election would synchronize the election calendar, ensuring government have full term of focus on their governments. Historical evidence supports this. India successfully conducted simultaneous elections from 1951 to 1967, a period marked for stable governments and landmark policies like Green Revolution. By adopting one nation, one policies, we can reclaim the era of stability, ensuring governments is not held hostage by the electoral cycle. Premises 2. One nation, one election seeks enormous financial administration resources. My second premise is rooted economic parabolic. Simultaneously, election will drastically reduce the colossal financial and administration burden straggling polls. The cost of election in India is staggering, and the taxpayers are bearing the burden. In 2024, Lok Sabha election along the cost of estimated around 1.35 lakh crores. I repeat, it's 1.35 lakh crores, including the government expenditures and political party spending, making it most expensive allocation in the world. Add to this cost the state assembly election, and such as 12,000 crores spent on Maharashtra 2024 polls and 800 crore on Karnataka 2023 elections. The total expenditure of the election of 5 cycles easily surpassed 1.5 lakh crore. Moreover, the administration machinery is stretched during the election. In 2024, over 15 million government employees, including teachers, police, health officers, were diverted from their primary duties to manage the seventh phase of Lok Sabha. This disrupted the routine of services, with schools in states like Uttar Pradesh closing for almost a week. Simultaneously, election would have strain, allowing our workforce to focus and development. Internally, countries like Sweden conducted simultaneous national local election, saving their resources without compromising the democratic integrity. Critics may argue that initially the investment in infrastructure such as additional electronic voting machine will be high. However, this is a one-time cost and negligible compared to recurring savings of several crores per election. Thus, one nation, one service is a strategic investment in the Indian future. Over to you.
I will continue with the third premise. A third premise is that simultaneous elections foster national unity and enhance democratic participation, countering voter fatigue and divisive regionalism. India's current electoral system often pits national and state issues against each other, creating fragmented political narratives. Frequent elections exacerbate and cause regional divisions as parties exploit local sentiments to win votes, often at the expense of national cohesion. Simultaneous elections would encourage a unified national discourse where voters evaluate parties on a holistic governance agenda. This was evident during the early years of simultaneous polls, where voters' turnout was constantly higher, averaging 61% in the 1950s and 60% compared to the 65.79% turnout, which, which saw lower participation in states like Bihar. Speaking of voter fatigue, consider this. Between 2030 and 2024, 2020 and 2024, states like Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra held multiple elections, including Lok Sabha, state assembly, and local body polls, leading to voter exhaustion. In Maharashtra's 2024 assembly elections, turnout was a mere 66%, down from 70% in 2019, reflecting disillusionment with constant political noise. Simultaneous elections would streamline the process, making it easier for citizens to engage meaningfully in democracy. Internationally, countries like Germany, which synchronize federal and state elections to a large extent, report higher voter turnout, averaging 75%, and greater political stability. India, with its vibrant democracy, can achieve similar outcomes by adopting one nation, one election. But before we conclude, let us address this concern, the fear that simultaneous elections may undermine federalism by favoring national parties. This is unfounded. Data from 1950s and 60s, data from the 1950s and 60s, when simultaneous elections were the norm, shows regional parties thrived, winning significant representation in states like Tamil Nadu. Modern safeguards, such as the Election Commission's independence, ensure fairness for all parties, national or regional. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, one nation, one election is not an idea whose time has come. It is long overdue. That will be all.
Okay, thank you, Team 19. Uh, we can continue with Team 25. Uh, just a second. Team 25, you can introduce your point of views in 3, 2, and 1.
Elections are the most integral part for a democratic country, and the way these are held or conducted is also equally important. Good afternoon, dear judges, opponents, and everyone present here. We are against the motion One Nation, One Economy. So, starting with the reasoning, one nation, one election was the case in India in the 1950 to 1967, when the general and the assembly elections were conducted simultaneously. So in 1950, 55, 62, 69. But in 1967, when there was a dissolution and premature, like when the assembly got dissolved, this system changed, and now in 2025 this concern again raised that do we really have to go back to that one nation one election. So let's see the reasoning behind it. So, firstly, in India, are voters actually ready to adopt this move? Some political parties argue that it may influence the voter behavior in a manner that voters would end up voting on national issues even for state elections, and this may lead to larger national parties winning both state and Lok Sabha elections, thereby marginalizing regional parties. There will be various election issues. State and national elections are often fought on different sets of issues, and in simultaneous elections, voters may end up privileging one set over the other in ways they might not have done otherwise. This means that the General Assembly will demand and attract more attention, and the regional issues will be ignored or marginalized. When we hold elections simultaneously, it means that if a person is sick or say has gone abroad for studies, he can't attend on that day, he can't vote on that day, and he is not just missing one but all three of them. So in colleges or in schools also, there's a system of re-examination. But when we make that entire election poll simultaneous, he is probably losing all of those. Second thing, the logistics. So for keeping elections simultaneously, we need almost 3 times more EV machines and warehousing to keep these safe. My partner would like to continue.
Our arguments in favor of our proposition are as follows. Firstly, constitutional and legal hurdles. The Indian Constitution currently provides for fixed 5-year terms for both the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Implementing ONOE would require amendments to multiple provisions, including the Representation of People Act 1951. If a government collapses due to a no confidence motion or an internal crisis, should fresh elections be held immediately or delayed until the next ONOE cycle? Extending President's rule or imposing an interim government raises concerns about democratic rights and governance stability. A strong ruling party with a weaker opposition could reduce government accountability. Secondly, difficulty in synchronization. Even if elections are synchronized once, midterm dissolutions of assemblies or the Lok Sabha could disrupt the cycle. If the state government falls early, holding elections immediately breaks the ONOE system, while delaying elections undermines democracy. For example, the collapse of Karnataka in 2019 and Madhya Pradesh in 2020 show that political instability is common. Third, federalism concerns. India follows a quasi-federal structure, allowing state governments autonomy in decision making. ONOE might force the states to align their governance with national government, reducing flexibility in addressing local issues. Article 246 of the Constitution divides power between union and states, and ONOE could shift more control to the center, reducing the independence of regional leadership. Fourthly, impact on regional parties. State elections focus on local issues such as agriculture, education, healthcare, law, while Lok Sabha elections emphasize national concerns such as foreign policy, defense, and the economy. Simultaneous elections may overshadow state specific issues, favoring national parties like BJP or Congress over smaller regional parties. Voters may choose the same party at both national and state levels, weakening political diversity. A report from IDFC institution stated that there's a 77% chance that the Indian voter will vote for the same party for both the state and the center when the elections are held simultaneously. Fifth, voter fatigue and complexity. Voters may struggle to make uniform decisions when choosing between both national and state representatives in a single election. Decision making could be biased, with national leaders influencing state level choices rather than local governance concerns. And lastly, I would like to speak about implementation challenges. Conducting elections for 28 states, 8 union territories, and the Lok Sabha simultaneously could be logistically and financially demanding. Managing over 900 million voters, election officials, EVMs, and security forces nationwide in one go could require unprecedented coordination. Security concerns, such as deploying paramilitary forces across all states at once, may stretch resources, and the election commission would require millions of additional EVMs to accommodate ONOE, not to mention the additional warehousing and transportation costs. Thank you.
Okay, so team 25 is done with their introduction to the topics. Now, next, we will be moving forward to the counter arguments, that are the rebuttals. So, team 19 and team 25, I hope you are ready for the rebuttals in 3, 2, and 1.
I would like to ask our opponent, do you know how many advantages we have of one nation, one voting? I'll speak up for you. It promotes consistency in governance, preventing policy paralysis, reduce government disruption, reduce financial burden, boost economic stability, optimize resource utilization. I ran out of breath, but the list still continues. Reduce voter fatigue, improve policy continuity, minimize the diverse policy, enhance political opportunities, encourage informed voting, reduces political corruption. And if you're still doubting, we are not the first one to apply this. Countries like United States, Germany, South Africa, Indonesia, Sweden, Brazil, Philippines works on one nation, one voting. Do you still think that we don't need one nation, one voting? Or is it really a challenge to apply?
So you've addressed so many advantages. So firstly, I would like to answer the question that you said that it will help in informed decision making. So actually, this is one of the major drawbacks in one nation, one election because it creates voter confusion. In India, there's a huge percent who doesn't even know the difference between general election and assembly elections. So do you think the voters are ready to research, or they just go with the party who offers them biryani or other such incentives? Secondly, you said about the various countries like Brazil, Sweden, Belgium. So we can't just have like a copy paste over here because in Brazil, Sweden, Belgium, the other countries they don't have the same policies that India adopts. The stated countries go for proportional representation, which means that if a party gets 30% of vote, they occupy 30% seat. But in India, it is different. In India, it is first past the post, which means that the majority vote, like the majority vote goes to a party, and that party is completely in power. It's not like 20% if other opposition has one, then they'll occupy the seats.
Also,
Personally,
you were referring to different countries. I just want to add one point to what my
go.
partner said. You mentioned different countries which had adopted one nation, one election. We cannot compare India to these countries because India by far has a larger population and a larger area as compared to these countries. Okay, India is the second largest country in the world according to population and the seventh largest according to area. It is a huge hassle logistically, financially, economically to implement one nation, one election. Please go ahead.
The first thing you mentioned about the education, that how people are not less educated about, how they are not even aware about. I don't think so it's relevant to our topic. Our topic addresses something different. If that's the case, then education is the problem, not the system of one day, one election. Also, I would like to counter the question, which it was mentioned that we cannot deploy on large scale because we don't have. Let me clear that the Central Army Police Force (CAPF) were deployed for average for 300 days annually on election duties between 2019 and 2024, reducing their availability for internal security tasks by 25%. Simultaneously, election could cut their deployment from 100 days every 5 years, freeing up 1,250 days of decades for continuing the terrorism, border security, and disaster management. Over to you.
Okay,
If
so
my
I would like to
opponents spend more time listening than reading, they would know that I've already countered the federalism argument in my opening speech. For example, let me tell you to you. In 2024, simultaneous elections in Odisha and Andhra presented that 68% of campaign content focused on state-specific issues, debunked the myth that one election, one nation, one election undermines federalism. There is no sound basis of it. And the biryani example was completely irrelevant.
So then the thing is that what happens, it's yes, you're right that we have less education, but here it creates education. Oh, it creates confusion. When we are holding simultaneous elections, it's like it's the win of the mightier over the win of the best. So a person will not go and research. Instead, if he's seeing a rally of one certain party, there are very high chances that he votes for them without knowing the background or what good that party is going to bring.
You mentioned, my opponent mentioned that the voter turnout wouldn't work out. But according to the statistics, the voter turnout ranges from 60 to 80% according to the past historical examples. But this concept is implemented when once the concept of one nation one election is implemented, it will increase the voter turnover as it will motivate them, and everyone will think of it as a festival and everyone will be on the same page. But how can you overlook the unifying potential of one nation, one election, where a single electoral event could foster a sense of national unity, especially in a country like India, especially in a country like India, instead of perpetuating divisive state-specific election campaigns?
On addition, I would like to talk about the effect. Do you know the infrastructure projects get delayed due to this? A 2020 NITI Ayog analysis found that infrastructure projects worth 2.5 lakh crores were delayed due to MCC restrictions between 2014 and 2019. Simultaneously, election could reduce such delays by 60%, ensuring that faster economic growth and job creation, particularly in the sectors like highway, rurals, and electrification.
I would also like to counter the financial perspective of my opponent. The initial investment put into one nation, one election will offset the long-term savings in election costs, security, and expenses in governance. Once implemented, the nation will save billions. In 2019 general elections, it cost 10,000 crore for the central government alone. Simultaneous elections could reduce this by potentially saving 6,000 crores per cycle. How can you justify massive financial burden of frequent election costs like 1.35 lakh crores for 2024 elections when 6,000 crores can be saved?
So
okay,
the
so
first
about I would like to talk about the financial point that you just mentioned. So, according to former Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi, he pointed out while that the in the COVID committee's report, it was said that it would reduce election costs. The report lacked a detailed analysis of associated expenditure. Secondly, I would like to mention that this would also involve a lot of costs. To mention a few, firstly, electoral equipments for the simultaneous elections in 2029, the ECI has estimated a requirement. It has estimated a requirement of 53.7 lakh ballot units, 38.67 lakh control units, and 41.65 lakh VVPATs. So if we are conducting elections simultaneously, this would necessitate adding 26.55 lakh ballot units, 17.78 lakh control units, and 17.79 lakh VVPATs to the current inventory. That's a huge amount. Secondly, let's talk about security personnel. So to conduct the one nation, one election smoothly, it would require an increase in the number of security personnel. The ECCI has estimated a number of 4,719 companies of Central Armed Police Forces, which is CAPF, in the 2024 general election, which was a 50% increase from the 2019 requirement. Imagine if we are to hold elections simultaneously, the cost would double or triple. Also, when the Jammu and Kashmir elections were held recently, they were not being able to held concurrently due to the high security demands. Around
Sorry to
500 to
interrupt. As it's only 2 minutes left, I would like to just mention it again. Like I mentioned in my opening statement, that it's a one-time investment. Obviously, it's expensive.
but
I mentioned this point in my opening at my final. This was
what
my
about the
final statement, in
security?
fact, because it's a one-time investment, and once it's done, it can save a lot money in upcoming future. We have to think long-term perspective rather than short-term perspective. Over to you.
Okay,
So, do we value
so
a
you
long term saving on the cost of malfunction or voter confusion in
and
a
not just
democratic
that,
country?
let us talk about, you said okay, long term investment, we'll have to make all the EVMs once, fine, agreed. But what about the storage cost? What about the transparency transportation cost? What about security? We are conducting Lok Sabha elections. There are so many claims of tampering or rigging of the EVMs. Imagine conducting elections on such a huge scale. What about security then? What about safety? You will require so much
Like
personnel.
if
You
I
will
mentioned
require so many.
again, like I mentioned again,
It's
this is
not about
not the
just,
first time we are doing it. This is not the first time India is doing one time one election.
but I
It
am
has
talking
been
about the
already proceed.
financial cost.
Just because of few
I know
things
that.
doesn't mean we cannot divide it. Over to you.
We have historical proof. Is the round
Yet the
over?
cost will still be up. It will not reduce.
Time's up, guys. I'm
Okay.
sorry if you couldn't hear the bell.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll be starting with the conclusions. Team 19, you can conclude your statements and arguments in 3, 2, and 1.
My opponents didn't really understand our points and were making contradictory statements, but I'd like to conclude. One nation, one election isn't just a reform, it's a transformative vision for a more efficient and representative India. Our current system of staggered elections drains resources, hinders governance, and can lead to voter fatigue. One nation, one election offers a powerful solution, promising streamlined governance, fiscal responsibility, and stronger democratic participation. The financial implications are undeniable. I would like to repeat again. In 2019 Lok Sabha elections, it cost 4,000 crores combined with the state elections. The total nears 10,000 crores per cycle. This is a staggering sum. But this could be spent better on development and can be unlocked by one nation, one election. Imagine the impact on education, healthcare, and infrastructure if these funds were reinvested. Beyond savings, one nation, one election can revitalize our democracy. Simultaneous elections can historically shown higher voter turnout. For example, Andhra Pradesh for 2014 simultaneous polls saw 78.4% turnout compared to 74.5% in the 2019 separate elections. Reduced voter fatigue and a streamlined process empower citizens to participate more actively. The constant election cycle creates governance paralysis, costing India an estimated 1 to 2% of GDP annually. Governments become preoccupied with campaigning, hindering long term planning. One nation, one election minimizes these disruptions, allowing elected officials to focus on governing and serving the people. This fosters stability. That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Team 19, for concluding your statements. Team 25, I would invite you to conclude your statements in 3, 2, and 1.
One
I
nation,
would just
one elect. Yes, please continue.
So, what if the assembly dissolves prematurely or the government loses its majority in middle? So, as you know, in Indira Gandhi's period, also this thing had happened, which led to loss of confidence in public. Also, as you said, that it promotes a lot of savings, and which, if used effectively, can bring about a very good development. But what if the voter is confused and they choose the wrong government? All of this fund will not be employed for the good. So it is very important in a democratic country to avoid voter confusion. My partner will continue.
While my opponents spoke about the financial and economic advantages that one nation, one election offered, they forgot to take into account the associated expenses, the security, the safety concerns, the EVMs, the workmen, the work staff that will be required. One nation, one election undermines federalism. It reduces the autonomy of state governments. It is against the constitution because it is against the dual pattern that India follows. It can weaken regional issues. It is detrimental for local parties because it shifts focus away from them. It also creates a lot of voter fatigue because voters at times just focus on national issues and do not pay attention to local issues. All of these combined together are highly detrimental in implementing one nation, one election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, both the teams, judges. All the rounds for this debate have been concluded. Uh, Krishi, over to you.
Another impressive round of debates. As our judges finalize their assessments, we request participants to wait in the main breakout room, where the results for this round will be announced. A huge thank you to our esteemed judges for their time, expertise, and valuable insights in evaluating today's debates. Your guidance is truly appreciated. The top two teams will move forward to the grand finale, where they will compete for the ultimate title. Wishing all teams the very best. Participants, please leave the breakout room. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.